Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, what life was like in the industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout Massachusetts. And currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and Easthampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. Now, his tours spotlight on the canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, and also various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. Now, in today's episode, we will be discussing the Brookside Cemetery, located in the community of Easthampton, Massachusetts. So, what is the reason that the cemetery was placed here?
Put it along this brook because it's so gorgeous out there. Now, sure, it's along what's a brook, but the body of water behind it is not a pond or a lake. It's a reservoir. All right, and it was put in. It was put in because of it has a gorgeous look to it. It was put in because of the type of cemetery it is, and we'll talk about that. It was put in the year 1874. Now, there's not many burials along that juncture of the coast, or the coast of the reservoir, or right along that water. They try to keep away from that, and that's because the town probably says don't put too many bodies close to there. All right, we're also going to talk about some of the positive, gorgeous features of the cemetery, and then we'll talk about when the cemetery started up and why it might have started up. Right, but it has some nice features, and I'll just mention one. There's beautiful gates on them. For instance, there's a beautiful section where the military men put into place, and there's of course the water, which by itself is great, and that's one of the greatest features of all.
And what type of cemetery is Brookside?
All right, the type of cemetery is known as a garden cemetery or a rural cemetery. They want to make it look like a natural garden, look like a natural park, look like a rural scenic place. And the first one ever built in the United States was a Morton Cemetery in Watertown. And if you can get it to look like that, then it takes on a natural, sacred look. There's some in western Massachusetts, including the Forest Hill Cemetery, the Springfield Cemetery, and this one, the Brookside, came around and they wanted to look that way too. It was one of the later ones put in because after the Civil War, these weren't put in quite as much. They started putting in lawn cemeteries, which are straight lines and are much easier to maintain. But this one, it has a nice look to it because it's right on the edge of a body of water.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to sign up for any of his various tours or find out more information, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can also find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, and his tours make for fun and educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, what are some of the positive features of this cemetery?
Okay, besides the beautiful curving roadways and the beautiful water, body of water outside of it, and a nice WPA maintenance building, Works Progress Administration, that was built in the 1930s, in fact 1938. It also has a lot of other things. It has a beautiful military section with a cannon inside of it. It also has a couple of nice plaques on a stone that's near the entrance. And then it has a nice gate, and the gate says, in loving memory of Henry Coupe, November 1st, 1971. And that gate system is very nice because it's made out of white granite rock. It's adds to the decor. So everything you want to put in here should make it look like a park or a garden. And it succeeds there. They encourage people to walk around it as if it's a park, and that's the whole reason these kind of cemeteries do exist.
And when did the cemetery start?
All right, this cemetery started in the year 1874, and that's late for a garden-style cemetery. In fact, it's quite late. Now, I looked up a burial that was from 1874, and I so encouraged that it could be the first one. It said Wilfred Nevins died the 4th of November, 1874, in Holyoke, and he's buried somewhere in Easthampton. So I said, oh, is he buried at the cemetery? Well, it turns out he's not. He is buried somewhere else, but he has his name on a stone here with his father and mother. And thus, this is a cenotaph for Wilfred Nevins. Okay, now, the first one might be a person I can't even find her gravestone, but Louise Ronig, who died 13th of November 1874, might be the first burial of all. I can't find her, but I know that she has a stone here because I find it on Find a Grave. So I hope when I do find her Easthampton-based death certificate, it'll say, oh, she's buried in Brookside, really, and it won't be just another cenotaph like that young boy was. So there is a stone in this cemetery that says Ronig, and it has Louis, Wilhelmine, Louise, Clara, and Gotthelf, and they're on the front of a stone that says Ronig on the bottom. Hopefully I can figure out someday through the Easthampton town records that she's really buried here. The state-based records don't give down to the cemetery where she's buried. They just say she's buried in Easthampton somewhere. Alright, so that's the start of the cemetery, and I hope you go there someday and use it either as a park or to investigate relatives that you might have buried here, or just to get the beautiful scenic view of the reservoir that's nearby. Thank you.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And of course, we want to thank our listeners for tuning in as well. And be sure to check out a large selection of our other podcasts at his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you, and hope you join us again.